We're on Daf Yudalid Amid Beis, and we're up to Rabbi Akiva Gamre Istapikla, which is approximately 15 lines down from the top of the Amud. And the Gemara was asking the following question. Rabbi Akiva had postulated that he's going to take L'chumra, the Shita Beit Shammai in Rosh Hashana Lilanos, and that's Aleph Shvat, and the Chumra Kibeis Hillel of the 15th of Shvat, being Rosh Hashanah. Therefore, in a year that goes from number 2 into number 3, and that period of 2 weeks at the beginning of Chodesh Shvat could belong either to last year, which was year 2 in the Shemitah cycle. It means the Chiv was Hafroshas Ma'aser Sheni, or it could belong to year 3 in the cycle, based on Beit Shammai, who holds that the new year begins for Ilonos on Rosh Chodesh Shvat, and therefore the Chiv Maser would be not Maser Sheni, but Maser Oni. And the Gemara asks, how could it be that Rabbi Akiva would take an inconsistent position? If he wants to go with Beit Shammai, he should accept the Kulas and the Chumras. If he wants to go with Beis Hillel, take the Kulas and the Chumras. But Rabbi Akiva, in his Maisa, when he was Mafresh both Maser Sheni and Maser Oni, was involved in an inner contradiction. It was a stira of Zeh Lezeh L'chumra, because he considered this year at the same time the second year of Shemitah, which was Mafresh Maser Sheni, and the third year of Shemitah, which was Maser Oni, second year Kibeis Hillel, third year Kibeit Shammai. And those two positions are mutually exclusive. You can't say that one year belongs to both the second year, Maser Sheni year, and the third year, Maser Oni. So the Gemara answers, Rabbi Akiva, Gamre Istapete. V'lo yoda, I Beis Hillel b'echad b'shvat amru, I b'chamisha sar b'shvat amru. According to the Gemara's answer, Rabbi Akiva certainly accepted the Shita of Beis Hillel exclusively. He was not involved in a contradiction of paskening like both the Chumrah of Beit Shammai and the Chumrah of Beis Hillel. The problem is, he didn't have a clear tradition as to what Beis Hillel's position was. Was Beis Hillel the one who said Aleph Shvat is Rosh Hashanah Lilanos, or alternatively, it was Beis Hillel who said Tu B'Shvat? And therefore, in that period of time, having that suffix about which position Beis Hillel took, whether it was Aleph Shvat or Tu B'Shvat, he had to be knowing both Maisers L'chumra. Now the Gemara wants to know about the opinion of Rabbi Yossi, Rabbi Yehuda regarding this Maisa of Rabbi Akiva. We learned in a Brisa, Rabbi Yossi Rabbi Yehuda Omer, Lo minag Beis Shammai Beis Hillel nagba, El minag Rabbi Gamliel v'Rabbi Eliezer nagba. The two positions, whether it's last year Shana Beis or this year Shana Gimel, whether it's Maser Sheni or Maser Oni that Rabbi Akiva took, had nothing to do with the machlokas between Beis Hillel and Beit Shammai, but rather it had to do with the different machlokas tanoim between Rabbi Gamliel and Rabbi Eliezer with regard to Peros Elon, and had to be Kover Rosh Hashanah for Peros Elon. And the Gemara now asks the following question: the Echad B'Shvat, according to Rabbi Yossi, Rabbi Yehuda's interpretation, that the story of Rabbi Akiva, when he collected the esrogim and harvested them after Aleph Shvat, he was noeg ki Rabbi Gamliel and ki Rabbi Eliezer with regard to how to be kovea the chiyuv esrog in Maser, or we can kovea basar chanota or basar lekita. What exactly determines the year of the Shemitah with regard to Peros Elon in general, and specifically with regard to Esrog? So the Gemara is saying that the Echad B'Shvat, if in this case where the Lakita was after Rosh Chodesh Shvat, and Rabbi Akiva was not sure whether Lakita determines the year or Chanota, is Ki Beis Hillel Nagba? Is it really so that Rabbi Akiva would be noeg like Beit Shammai, meaning that with Echad B'Shvat we have a new year. According to Rabbi Beis Hillel, only the 15th of Shvat is Rosh Hashanah Lilanos. And therefore, everyone should agree here, there should be hands down, that he should be mafresh like the previous year, Meiser Sheni. And in fact, Rabbi Akiva was known as a Talmud of Beis Hillel. And Halacha Paskins like Beis Hillel, therefore. So Rabbi Akiva would have certainly understood that we're still in the second year. There would be no reason to be mafresh Maser Ani as if we're in the third year because it was Aleph Shvat. And in order to answer this, Rabbi Hanina is now being quoted to change one element in the equation, one part of the scenario. Rabbi Hanina, the Itema Rabbi Hananya, so it might be Rabbi Hanina or Rabbi Hananya. And the truth is that Rabbi Akiva was knowing straight across the board like Beis Hillel. He was a Talmud of Beis Hillel, and Rosh Hashanah Leperes Elon is the 15th of Shvat. Hacha, but we have to change the scenario a little bit. The Ma'aseh Shahoy was a little bit different than what we had assumed until this point. The Ma'aseh was that he was Malaki the Esrog on the 1st of Shvat, and according to Rabbi Yosef, Rabbi Yehuda, be Esrog Shechantu Peiroso Hodem Chamisha Sar the Idach Shvat. The story was that this Esrog tree had a chanot of its peiros before the 15th of Shvat of the previous year. And on the 15th of Shvat, we entered into the third year. So that again, let's emphasize, the chanot of this Esrog tree took place before Tu B'Shvat and therefore belongs to the second year. But the Lakita was done after Chamisha Sar B'Shvat. So the Chanota was in the second year of Shemitah, that's the Meiser Sheni year. But the Lakita, which took place before the 15th of Shvat, but it was in the following year because the Chanota had taken place in the second year before Tu B'Shvat. So Niklat, when was the Klita? It was before the 15th of Shvat of this year, which is before the fourth year of the Shemitah cycle. And since the Lakita was before the fifth year, before the 15th of Shvat of this year, therefore, according to Beis Hillel, we haven't reached the Rosh Hashanah Lilanos of this year. And it's as if the Lakita had taken place in the third year of the Shemitah cycle, and therefore we should be knowing Meiser Sheni. Now it depends on Rabbi Gamliel and Rabbi Eliezer. According to Rabbi Gamliel, everything depends upon Lakita. And if the Lakita was in the third year, let's say post Tu B'Shvat, because according to Beis Hillel that Lilanos is Tu B'Shvat. So the Lakita, the harvest of this Esrog was in the new year, the third year. It was after Tu B'Shvat. And therefore, if we accept Rabbi Gamliel's opinion that what determines the year of an Esrog tree, it is the Lakita, then certainly, beyond a shadow of a doubt, he's chayav the Meiser of that year, meaning Meiser Ani. However, according to Rabbi Eliezer, what's kover the Shnas Shemitah for an Esrog tree? It's not Lakita, but rather Chanota. And since the Chanota took place in the second year, therefore he's chayav in Meiser Sheni. This was the suffix of Rabbi Akiva. He was mafresh two Meisers, Meiser Sheni and Meiser Ani, because he didn't know whether to paskin like Rabbi Gamliel or like Rabbi Yeshua. According to Rabbi Gamliel, we go after Lakita, and we've already entered into the third year if the Lakita took place after Tu B'Shvat, which is Rosh Hashanah Lilanos. And all he would have to do is be mafresh Meiser Ani. But since Rabbi Akiva was choshesh for the Shita Rabbi Elazar, and according to Rabbi Eliezer, in fact, going basar, the Chanot took place in the second year, would be chayav Meiser Ani. Hence, Rabbi Akiva was mafresh two Meisers. Now, we have to be a little bit more liberal in terms of the literal translation of the Maisa Shahaya of Rabbi Akiva, the way it was transmitted in the Brisa. Bedinu, really, when the Brisa was presenting this scenario, it could have said it afilu kodem lachem. In other words, even if he did the Lakita of the Esrog earlier, even before Aleph Shvat, because again, the Chanota was before Tu B'Shvat of the second year, and then just do the Lakita, Kislev, Tevi, Shvat, whatever. I'm sorry, in right. He could have done the Lakita and Adar, etc., right after Tu B'Shvat. However, says the Gemara, the reason why the Brisa formulated in the way it does is because that was a description of the actual occurrence. This was not a made-up theoretical Brisa. It was actually recording a case that happened. But again, if we talk about Rabbi Akiva's Safek, it was whether we go Basar Lakita or Basar Chanota. If we go Basar Chanota, it was last year, before Tu B'Shvat year. And if the Lakita was done after Tu B'Shvat, then we've already entered into the third year, and that's Meiser Oni. The Gemara says that we can even enhance this by answering the question of why Rabbi Akiva was Noeg, apparently Kebeit Shammai, and Meiser Oni, considering that Aleph Shvat was Rosh Hashanah. Kroch, Ravina Mar Kroch Utni. We can combine the words of Rabbi Yossi, Rabbi Yehuda, and we could say that by doing so, we're going to talk about a case where he's arguing against the Tanakama on two counts. Lo Echad B'Shvat Haya, the day on which Rabbi Akiva implemented the Lakita of the Esrog was not on Echad B'Shvat, because there's no new year of Peres HaIlon according to Beis Hillel on Echad B'Shvat. El Chamisha Sa B'Shvat Haya. And on that day of the 15th of Shvat, even according to Beis Hillel, we have Eschadshus Hashana, we have a new year, the third year of the Shemitah cycle. V'lo minig Beit Shammai Beis Hillel Nagbo. It wasn't that Rabbi Akiva was mafresh two meisos because of Beis Hillel Beit Shammai, but rather minog Rabbi Gamliel, Rabbi Eliezer Nagbo. As we explained earlier, Basa Chanot was last year, and Basa Lakita is this. Amar Rabbi Barafuna Hashna the Amar Rabbi Gamliel. Esro Holchimbo Achar Lakitaso. And apparently the Gemara implies that we pass like Rabbi Gamliel, that the din of Esro, as far as Meiser is concerned, has the same status as Yerek, and it's the Lakita that's Kover the Shana. Isuro ki Yerek, since you're establishing that the laws of Hafrashas Maser, in terms of which year the Esrog belongs, are identical with the laws of Maser in Yerek and Azlina Basel Lakita, the Hashana Shalom is B'Tishrei, meaning on the first of Tishrei. We said back on Daf Beis that Rosh Hashanah Li'Yerakos was not the 15th of Shvat, and certainly not the first of Shvat, but rather it was Aleph Tishrei. So that if the Lakita had been done Erev Rosh Hashanah, it belongs to last year. If it was done after Shkias HaChama and past Rosh Hashanah, it belongs to the new year. Because in Yerakos, everything depends upon Rosh Hashanah of Aleph Tishrei. And now Rabbah is saying the same thing logically should apply with regard to Ram Gamliel's Shita of Esrog Achar Lakita, which is the same identical din as Yerek Basel Lakita. Therefore, the Rosh Hashanah should be Aleph Tishrei. So the Gemara immediately objects. It's impossible to say that Aleph Tishrei is Rosh Hashanah Lilanos. Meisvei, we quote a Bryce Reb Shimon ben Elazar Omer, Likate Esrog be Erev Chamisha Sov Shvat. So on the 14th of Shvat, he harvested an Esrog. The Chazav Likate Mishatova Shvat, Shemesh meaning, and he was malake the payers of esrog, additional esrog, after Shkia, and we're already entered into the 15th of Shvat, which is the new year. Ein Torah Masu Zelzeh, Lefish Ein Torah Masu Lo Min HaChodesh Al HaYoshan V'Lo Min HaYoshan Al HaChodesh. So far everything's clear. If we go like Ram Gamliel, the Lakita would be Kover the Shnas Masros for the Esrog, and it all depends whether he did the Lakita before Tu B'Shvat or after Tu B'Shvat. But clearly this price is maintaining there are Shana Lilonos is Tu B'Shvat, even in the case of Esrog. The price continues. Chaisa Shlishis Nichneses L'Revius, if it was the third year of the Shemitah cycle, and now the 15th of Shvat enters the fourth year of the Shemitah cycle, he's mafresh the peiros that he was malake during the third year, and he should be mafresh maserisha meiser oni, cutting out meiser sheni, because we're now in the third year, and the revius, those peiros that he was malake in the fourth year, is Meiser Rishon, Meiser Sheni. We go back to the original cycle. This is now year 4 in the cycle. It's equal to years 1 and 2. And he's mafresh both Meiser Rishon and Meiser Sheni. That's the law of Peros in the fourth year. Now we turn to Daf Tesvav. Man shamet le di ozel basel lekita Rav Gamliel Pitani Shvat. Clearly, we could not interpret the statement of Rabba Baruch Huna in a way that could be reconciled with this price. Rabba Baruch Huna insists that the Rosh Hashanah Esrog for Maisus is Aleph Tishrei. Here we have an explicit statement in the Brisa that Rosh Chodesh Tishrei is not Rosh Hashanah Lilonos, but rather Tu B'Shvat. So we see that despite the fact that according to Rabbi Eliezer, we go basar Lakita, according to Rabbi Gamliel, that we go basar Lakita, and that would give us room to equate Esrog with Yerakos, which are also Mikboim basar Lakita. Nevertheless, no. As far as Rosh Hashanah is concerned, we're going to establish Rosh Hashanah Lilonos on the 15th of Shvat. So the statement here of Rabbi Baruch Huna is not reconcilable with this price. It cannot be Aleph Tishrei this Rosh Hashanah. It's got to be Tu B'Shvat. Eli Yitmar, Hachi Yitmar. We're going to rewrite the text of Rabbi Baruch Huna. Amar Rabbi Baruch Huna, Afal Gavdi Amar Rabbi Gamliel. Esrog achar lekita, which means that the esrog is kiyerek, and the kovei of the shana, as far as the gidul apri is concerned, is lekita. Nevertheless, and that's again a reflection of the Shita Rav Gamliel. The Rosh Hashanah Shalom bit Shvat. The Rosh Hashanah is going to be on the 15th of Shvat. So we're going to have to determine in every case of an esrog, was the Lakita before Tu B'Shvat and it belongs to last year, or was it after Tu B'Shvat and it belongs to this year? Later on, you'll see, if you drop a few lines down, Boy Minei Rabbi Yochanan Rav Yanai Esrog Rosh Hashanah Shelo Emas. Amalei, and Rav Yanai responded to Shvat. So that would support what we just learned now in our reinterpretation of Rabbah based on the Brisa, that an Esrog, even though it's Basel Kita Kiyerek, nevertheless, Rosh Hashanah is on Tu B'Shvat. And we pass it, not only like Rabbi Gamliel, but also like Risa. The Gemara asks, Maishna Hassam, to Katani, the Brisa, back on Daf Yud Beis, with regard to the person who's Malak and Yerek before or after Rosh Hashana, 1 year before Rosh Hashana, the other afterwards. The Katani im Hoisa Shnia Nichneses Ushlishis. So the case of that brisa, the scenario was 2 going into 3. Maishna Hacha, but here in our brisa with regard to the Katani, Hoisa Shlishis, Nichneses Levites, meaning that there was a heat of one Esrog in Shlishis and the other in Revius. So where answers Milsag of Urche Kamashmalon, he tells something on the side to teach me that Esrog Pashale Yada, I'm going to have a long discussion about this. It's called Shimush Yadayim, which is mazik to the Eitza Esrog, when people constantly, handle like silly putty. They take the Esrog into their hands and it becomes worn down. And I did the Mashmash Bay Kuliyama B'Shvius. On Shvius, everyone is the Mashmash in the Atze HaEsrog because the pairs are Hefker. Anyone's allowed to go into the garden, orchard of his friend, and no one could protest. Lo toin pere ad tlos shnin. Because of this phenomenon of mishmush yadayim, kol adam rashoy likonis leginos pardesim during shvius, and ein mocha biyod, no one can object and protest. And low time peri ad flossen shtin, the process of developing of peros is going to be delayed, and it's not motzi peros months until after Shol Shana. And therefore the Brisa mentions a case where it's Shana Shlishis Lishmita, Nechneses Revius, because before then there are no peros on the 8th esrog at all. And the Gemara says that this is the category, the scenario that was chosen by the Brisa in the case of an esrog, meaning from Shlishis going into Revius, to teach me, Agav Urcha, that an esrog is vulnerable to Mishmash Yadayim, which damages it, has a negative impact on the esrog. And since in Shvius, as we said before, everyone is coming into the fields, being Mamashmesh Biatzei esrog, because everything's hefker, is therefore Rashoy Kolon Likones Leginos and Pardesus Vein Mochin Biyada. I own an orchard, I have a beautiful backyard garden. I can't stop anyone from coming in there during Shvius. And if that be the case, that anyone could come in there to my kino, my pardes, and I can't complain, then lo toid period flush. Because of this phenomenon called bitchmuch of the esrog, therefore we conclude that the tree will not produce its fruit, its new fruit, until after 3 years. He says, Mashma, Sheshmiu Dover Chidush Ba'alocha, the Eza Alocha Yitochen, Shahotzi Mikachsha Esrog Chonat B'Shvius, Toen Peros, V'rak, Liacher Sholosh Shonim, Yeshov Sheyesid Nafkeminim, Roiv, She'etza Esrog Toen Perosav Kfar B'Shar Rishon L'Shmita, Shasimonu Shalom Mashmish Bo B'Shvius, She'imoyu Mashmish Bo Loea Toen Peros. V'az Simonhu Shechantu Perosav B'Shvius V'Chayovim B'Biu. So the Brisa mentions Dafka, the case where Shana Shlish is going into Revius, because before that, there are no peros on the Eitz HaIlam. For 3 years, they won't, because of Mishmach phenomenon, there won't be peros on the Ilam. So here we are at the top of Taf, Tesvav, Amud Aleph, Boy, Minei, Rabbi Yochanan, Rabbi Yanai, and Belina will pick that up. Thank you very much. And